The neuroscience trick that makes any home feel 10 times better? Oh my golly gee.
Have you ever looked at a beautifully designed room and thought, why does this look so good? Obviously, we all have different tastes, but there's also plenty of science and psychology behind what makes certain rooms so timeless and aesthetically pleasing. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to harness that psychology to upgrade your own home without renovating or even buying new furniture. So, have you ever walked into a room that has all the right furniture, the trendy sofa, the marble coffee table, and the expensive rug, but it still feels a little flat, like you're looking at a two-dimensional image instead of standing in a three-dimensional space? Well, this is one of the most common mistakes people make with interior design, and it usually happens because you've fallen into the single plane trap. In most amateur rooms, everything lives on...
Felt kind of condescending, bro. What do you mean this, like, calling me one-dimensional, dude? You think, what are you trying to say?
One single horizontal band that starts at the floor and ends around 2.5 feet up. So your sofa, your coffee table, your media console, and your bed all occupy that same narrow slice of air. So when your eye scans a room like that, it has no...
Very descriptive, that narrow slice of air. If these YouTube videos stop doing well for this guy, he could become a poet. And I know it.
reason to travel upward or into the corners. Your brain basically collapses the whole space into a flat, static image. And this creates what designers call the dollhouse effect, which is a space where scale feels distorted and nothing feels substantial or anchored. And so to fix this, you have to reclaim the vertical plane. So think of your space like a 3D puzzle. You need to distribute the...
We need to reclaim the vertical plane. I like this guy. He talks serious, you know? I feel like people don't take things serious anymore. I like this energy. We need to dominate the vertical plane.
Visual weight so your eyes have a journey to go on. You want to lead the eye from the floor all the way to the ceiling. Because in interior design, a room is defined by how the eye moves through it. And so in a flat room, the eye scans strictly horizontally and hits a dead end as soon as it reaches a wall. And this horizontal scanning makes the ceilings feel lower and the walls feel closer, which effectively shrinks the perceived volume of the room. But adding in some vertical rhythm disrupts this, and by placing visual interest at varying altitudes, low, medium, and high, you force the viewer's gaze to travel in a W or M pattern, zigzagging up and down. And this vertical movement engages the peripheral vision and signals to the brain that the space is expansive and dynamic rather than compressed and static. But let me give you a few specific ways to do this so you know exactly what I'm talking about. One of the easiest cheats for this is the curtain height hack. Most people mount their curtain rods right on top of the window frame, but you don't want to do that. Instead, mount the rod 2 to 4 inches below the ceiling line. This forces the eye to travel the entire height of the wall, and it makes the room feel instantly taller and more expensive.
I feel like it was really misleading to say that this could potentially be, you know, it doesn't cost you $1, and then the first thing is remount your curtains. What do you mean remount my curtains? Bro, my landlord isn't going to approve of that shit. You think I own a house? You think I could just drill into the wall? Dude, suck on my penis.
Expensive, and this works by exploiting a visual ambiguity.
Oh my god, I'm frozen.
Directly on the window frame.
Yo, he froze me in time when he reclaimed the vertical plane. Oh no. Oh fuck.
You're clearly defining the upper limit of the window, and you're showing the brain exactly where the architecture stops.
Did it just do it again?
Raise the rod and
did it
let
just
the
do it
fabric
again?
drape over the wall space above the window, you obscure that boundary. And so the brain,
oh my
which
God,
loves to complete patterns, assumes that the window opening extends much higher behind the fabric than it actually does. And so you're essentially manufacturing a phantom architectural feature and tricking the eye into perceiving a grander floor-to-ceiling aperture where one doesn't exist. Now, another pro move is using vertical lines, like fluted wall panels or tall, slim bookcases, because these act like visual runways for your eyes, stretching the room's perceived volume. And these vertical lines create an optical illusion known as lofting. And so just as wearing vertical stripes can elongate a human figure, vertical architectural elements counteract the visual gravity in a room. When the eye latches onto a vertical line, Whether it's the fluting on a cabinet or the spine of a tall bookshelf, it instinctively accelerates upward. And this rapid upward movement creates a sense of lift, which pushes the perceived ceiling height up and makes the room feel airier. And it breaks.
So we need lots of lines around the house. You gotta put lines everywhere. Everything should be covered in lines.
The monotony of the horizontal datum lines created by sofas and tables, but that's only how you create spaciousness on the vertical plane. But you can also create it on the horizontal plane as well by creating depth in your room. And
just make the carpet all black so it looks like it's infinite. You know what I mean? Just make it deep, dark death black, you know? So it just like looks like you're staring into nothingness.
one way to do that is to stop bleeding your furniture into your walls. Because when a sofa's pushed against the wall, it loses its mass and starts looking like part of the architecture. Instead, you want to do what pro designers do, which is float their furniture. Because even moving a couch 6 inches away from a wall creates a gap that hints at hidden depth. And by doing this, you're telling the brain that there's a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. Because without those layers, even a huge room is going to feel like a shoebox. But to really understand this, I want you to think about landscape painting. Because painters create depth by clearly separating the foreground, or the objects close to the viewer, the middle ground, which is generally the main subject, and the background, which is the distant horizon. And a room works in the exact same way. The background is your canvas, so generally the walls, the curtains, and any artwork on those walls. The middle ground is normally your primary furniture anchor, so that'll often be something like the sofa or a bed. And then the foreground will be what's in front of the middle ground, so that could be something like a coffee table in front of your sofa, or a bench at the end of the bed. Now, when you push the middle ground, which is the sofa, flush against the background, which is the wall behind it, you're essentially merging those two layers. And so the brain learns to read them as a single flat plane. But by pulling the sofa out, you introduce some negative space in the form of a shadow line. And that shadow line is crucial because it proves to the eye that the object is three-dimensional and occupies real volume. It also allows the room to breathe around the furniture, creating a sense of circulation and flow, even if no one will ever actually walk behind the couch. And so the goal here
is that not like pointless though? That's how you end up with all of these random ass, like, it doesn't look like someone lives there. You know what I mean? It looks like, yeah, maybe you could film a TV show here, but it doesn't feel like a room you want to be in, you know? It's like, why is the couch facing 90 degrees to the TV? You know what I mean? It's like, why are all these chairs turned inwards at each other like people are going to be sitting and talking to each other right in front of the TV? And it's just like Jeff Bezos and his wife, you know what I mean? And they're never in there. You know? It creates liminal spaces.
is visual equilibrium. Balance.
Like tell me, bro, if you grew up in any sort of like middle, low class, like bro, we were not floating our furniture and shit. It was efficiency. What do you mean we're floating the couch to the center of the room so that we can have is the president coming over? Is the president? Oh, Mr. President, Mr. President, look how fucking ugly my couch is. This is your fault. That's what I'm going to tell Mr. President. Fucking rearrange my house.
Balancing the weight so it isn't all sitting on the floor. You can lift the room by using high-mounted artwork, tall floor lamps, or even hanging plants.
So far, this does not feel like subtle ways that you can really improve your house. This feels like why rich people's houses feel bigger.
And when you vary the
And
heights of your
are
decor,
bigger.
you're providing the brain with the data points it needs to accurately calculate the distance and scale of the room. Because if all your decor is at the same height, the tension is lost and the energy of the room just settles at your ankles. But by introducing different elements at different heights, you're effectively counterbalancing the heavy furniture on the floor and creating this dynamic tension that makes the room feel held up and actively designed. Now, if
I make my house ugly so no one stays long. Life hack. W. So you're saying I should pull all of my boxes and action figures back out and just lay them all around the fucking house? And that way, like, My grandpa, he just comes over. He's like, "Oh shit! All right, have a nice day." No.
The single plane is the structural reason your room feels flat. The big light is the visual reason. And you know the one I'm talking about, that single overhead fixture that floods your entire room with uniform brightness. And while it's great for finding a lost contact lens, it's the absolute enemy of good interior design. Because uniform light is flat because it bleaches out the contrast that your brain uses to identify form and distance. And when a room is flooded with even light, your furniture starts to look like cardboard cutouts that are glued to the wall. So the cheat code here is directional light. Unlike ambient light, which acts like a fog, spreading everywhere and illuminating nothing in particular, directional light acts more like the focus beam of a flashlight. So you can think of it like the difference between a cloudy day and a sunset. On a cloudy day, the light is diffuse and it's coming from every direction at once, which kills shadows and makes the whole world look gray. But directional light works because it creates a high contrast ratio. It forces the eye to recognize fall off, which is the way light wraps around a curve and slowly fades. And this is how your brain...
Bro, no offense. You want me to have ambient lighting in, like, you know, my average two bedroom apartment? What do you mean? Bro, there's 45 square feet. The microwave is in the bathroom. Fuck do you mean ambient lighting? Like, yeah, I'm very, you know, I worked very hard to get where I am, but most of my life, we did not have the privilege of considering our ambient lighting. I'm just very curious who this video is actually for. I feel like it's for a different, like, you know, bro's acting like everyone can afford this shit. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, you know, I'm very, you know, grateful for where I am in life and, but like, what are we saying, bro? Like, even I'm not gonna go out and get a bunch of lamps and start ambient lighting my house and fucking draw lines everywhere on the cabinets and shit. Have my landlord drill new curtain. What are we saying, bro? What are we saying?
Calculates volume. Without a specific light source to define an edge, your furniture has...
This, bro, the target audience for this can go and hire a team at the Home Depot, bro. The guy who's actually gonna execute on this video, he's going to Home Depot. He's going to shop around for about an hour and a half at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And then he's going to pick up all of the Mexicans who are standing outside. I can say that, okay? And they're going to that, and that's how they're going to spend their day, is redoing his house to make the neuroscience feel 10 times better. What did I just click on? Oh, okay.
No mass. And this creates a terminator line, which is just a fancy way of saying the boundary where light meets shadow on an object's surface. Without that line, your brain can't tell if a sofa is a three-dimensional object or just a flat shape. Because in the world of design, shadows aren't just the absence of light, they're constructive tools that breathe life into us.
You're pissing me off. What's the neuroscience on that, huh? You're not making me feel 10 times better, I know that.
Space. And when you aim a directional light source at a piece of furniture, it casts a shadow behind it. And that shadow acts as a visual anchor, providing the brain with the data it needs to calculate the distance between the chair and the wall. It's the cycle...
Oh, what the fuck are we talking about, bro? Just tell me where to put the goddamn couch. What do you... The directional lighting and the way it shines through my cock at night. What are we talking about?
Logical proof that the object is separate from the architecture. And a great way to do this is to use side lighting. If you position your light at a 45-degree angle to a surface, and especially something with texture like those vertical...
He's designing for a photographer, not the average human. Is that real? I don't know, man. I mean, maybe,
as I mentioned a minute ago, the light catches the peaks and leaves the valleys in a deep shadow. And so this sculpts the wall, giving it a tactile dimension that a fully flat surface simply can't achieve. Because when you light a wall from a steep angle, which is called grazing, you're essentially weaponizing physics to create depth in your room, because the light has to travel across the texture rather than through it. And this exaggerates every imperfection and intentional detail, which turns your wall into a rhythmic pattern of highlight.
This room looks like shit. What are, you know what? Okay, see, now we're getting into Badland Chugs territory. What is your scale of, like, you know, rating something 1 to 10? You know what I mean? Because, like, yeah, this is a 10 on the scale from 1 to hot dog. You know what I mean? This room looks like shit, objectively. Look at all of the contrasting, like, textures and layers, and this would be an unsettling room to be in for me. I would feel like I'm in like the holding room for the Hunger Games. Like they're 1 to hot dog. Stop it. They're literally gonna come in, put me on a leash, and go take me to the Hunger Games from this room.
Lights and low lights. And it also creates a sense
What
of
are we
visual
talking about?
separation where objects gain mass and the room feels deeper because your eye can keep traveling into those softly lit
Yeah,
nooks.
1 to hot
And
dog.
it shifts the wall from being a boundary that stops the eye to a landscape that the eye can explore. And you can see this in action in your own living room by swapping your overhead light for a floor lamp tucked beside an armchair. Instead of the chair being a flat silhouette against the wall, the side light catches the weave of the fabric and casts a soft shadow across the floor. This immediately creates a layer of air between the furniture and the background and gives the room a sense of depth that just wasn't there before. And then in the bedroom, if you have a textured or upholstered headboard, hitting it with directional sconces from the side, rather than a centered ceiling light, transforms it from a flat.
See, this doesn't look like a room anymore, bro. This looks like a graphic I would make on Adobe Express. Yeah.
Flat board
That
into a
doesn't look like
centerpiece
like
with
an
real
actual
weight.
room
because the
I would
shadows
be in.
and the tufting or wood.
What the fuck is this? You better not point to anything about this room as this is a bed that consumes an entire fucking room. How is this architecture? It's just 2 string lights hanging down to a bed that consumes the entire room.
Wood grain create a sense of luxury.
What
and
in the
coziness
Pinterest
that
board?
makes the
Thank you. Pinterest is such a good example. These are all things that like look good when you're scrolling on your phone. This is not a room you would actually like want to live in. It wouldn't be functional, at least. I don't know, bro. I guess if you're literally going to live in bed,
the bed feel like a
It's just a-
destination
it's just
rather
a
than
bed.
just a piece of furniture pushed
you
against
can't
the
even
wall.
get into
And
the fucking what's it called? The end tables. Dude, they're like 6 inches wide. This is probably generated with AI.
bed feel like a destination rather than just a piece of furniture pushed against the wall. And I can't conclude this section without mentioning
was
that you should
paralyzed.
always
That
keep
shit
in
would be
mind the
tough.
3 layers of light because you never want to rely solely on one source. And so you have the mood layer, which is the general glow in the room, the task layer, which is focused light for activities like reading or cooking, and the accent layer, which is the directional light used to highlight specific elements of the room. And when you layer these 3 types of light at different heights, you prevent your corners from collapsing into darkness. And so you aren't just lighting your room anymore, you're using light as a tool to create an immersive 3D experience. Now, if you've ever spent an afternoon meticulously arranging a bookshelf, only to step back and realize it looks less like a high-end editorial and more like the clearance aisle of a craft store, you might be falling into a trap that catches even the most dedicated DIYers. And it's a frustrating feeling because you've got the right objects, your space is clean, and the colors all match, but something about it just still feels off. It's stiff, sterile, or just plain boring. But the reason isn't that you lack taste. It's that you're being too logical. Because our brains are hardwired to seek out symmetry and balance because, evolutionarily speaking, symmetry equals order and safety. And so when we see even numbers, something like 2 vases, 4 picture frames, or 6 candles, our
This is like the most useful thing he's brought up this entire time. Symmetry. Everybody can implement symmetry into their interior design very easily. You can decide to rearrange things and make them look more even, you know, like balanced out. Everything else so far was basically like buy shit. Bolt shit into different parts of your wall. Change your entire cabinet system. You know? Draw lines I'm just gonna keep saying, draw lines all over the wall. Have your 2-year-old help you. Okay, just make sure they go from top to bottom and they make the room look fucking tall. Okay. Symmetry is actually very useful, and I love symmetry. I love symmetry. I love when things are balanced. I'm a Libra. What can I say?
Eyes instinctively try to pair them up, and it's an unconscious mental tick.
What's
But
up, Nick?
While symmetry might work for a formal government building, in a home, it makes your place feel like a furniture catalog where no one is actually allowed to sit down. Instead, what you actually want is to force the eye to keep moving, to wander across a surface and discover layers, which creates an organic energy that feels
It depends on what you're trying to achieve there, sir. Okay? I'd rather not make my house look as robbable as possible. Now, that kind of rhymed. Robbable as possible. You better not come walking through poppable. Oh.
lived in and comfortable. And to pull this off, you have to stop grouping things in pairs. But here's the important part. Most people hear odd numbers and think they can just toss any random objects into the mix to make it a trio. But that's exactly how you end up with a mess. So if you have 2 heavy taper candles sitting on a table and you just throw a small matchbox next to them, it doesn't look like design. It looks like you forgot to put the matchbox away. You can't just add a random third element and expect the room's energy to shift. If that third item doesn't have the right scale or purpose, it actually makes the original pair look...
Fuck your coffee table, buddy. I would argue that if you took your coffee table and put it up for auction against my coffee table would go for way more as an art piece. You know why? You put 3 random trinkets on there to make it look even, and it's so aesthetic and balanced. I got weed, a lighter, a 3D printed fidget spinner, okay? Optimus Prime. I have life on that coffee table. Fuck your coffee table. Fuck your playing cards.
more awkward. And so the goal
You're
isn't just
balding.
to reach an odd number.
I hate you.
It's to
Okay.
create a visual anchor that bridges the gap between your objects and the furniture they're sitting on. In other words, you need a hierarchy. And I like to think of this hierarchy through the lens of a vignette triangle. Because you don't just want 3 things that are all the same size, because that just creates a different kind of boring flat line. Instead, you need the tall, the medium, and the flat. So think of a tall vase of flowers providing the vertical peak of the arrangement, and then next to it, you place a medium-sized element
You know
like
what?
a
That's actually a
smaller
great
ceramic
point.
jug.
His background actually looks good, and we can confirm that it actually exists. All this other shit could be Photoshop, AI, Pinterest bullshit. Okay, this isn't real. This room, it does not exist. This room does not exist in real life. Look at this bench. Nobody is sitting on this bench. It's not practical. He should have used his room to explain all of this shit.
Jug, and then finally,
His room
you layer in
actually looks
something more
nice.
Flat,
All
like a
this-
small
I have-
stack
all
of
these other
books.
ones are
Of course, you could
dystopian.
also go with a heavy marble tray or a low brass bowl that physically anchors the other 2 items. But regardless of what you choose, when you cluster these together in a tight group where they're actually touching or overlapping, you've built a landscape on a micro scale, and your eye naturally travels.
It's just a cushion on a block. No, I don't think they even like stuffed it or anything. I think they just chopped this right off of the sheep and just glued it to the piece of wood.
From the peak of the flowers down
think
to the
that's just
ceramic jug,
his
and
ass
then rests on
glued
the
to a
books.
block.
And this flow is what makes your
is me when
space
playing
interesting.
Elsewhere.
But what happens if you're dealing with a significantly larger surface? Well, if you need to style a long floating desk or something like a wide console,
This is nice. What is this? Who made that? What is that? I'm gonna use Google to cross search that. One of the only artistic original things that we've seen in this like entire video. Everything else has been basically like reproducible bullshit. You can put the same cabinets, the same thing. You put it everywhere. You can put it everywhere. But this, someone did this themselves. God, if it's AI, I'm gonna
just
gonna
having
throw
3
a
items
fit.
can start to look a
throw
little
a fit.
sparse against all that horizontal space. So this is where you move up to 5 or 7 pieces. Instead of falling into the trap of matching lamps on each side, you can use a single chunky lamp to anchor one side and then layer across the rest of the surface. So a low stack of books next to another book with a bowl on top creates a perfect middle ground bridge, while a round ceramic vessel and a taller, darker sculpture balances things.
This artwork is titled Cat Eyes by artist Truly Hall, created in 2022. It measures 91.4 centimeters by 76 centimeters. Nice. Nice. It is a real painting. Why are we talking about the painting and not the chair? Dude, you can't even sit in this fucking chair. You literally, there are two tiny little pegs holding it from just falling forward and sending your face into the desk. Okay? Fucking chair doesn't even fit under the desk. Oh my
out on the
god.
other side. And by grouping these 5 items with
I like the tiles. I like the tiles in this one. The desk is nice with the little divot here. This is a nice nook. This is a nice little nook. I'm gonna give credit where it's due. This is not the worst room that we've seen. The chair is ridiculous though.
deliberate gaps
That's
of
just
negative space
ridiculous.
between them, the surface
That's
feels
just
styled
ridiculous.
and high-end.
I think it's a
while
good
still
carpet.
maintaining
I think it's
plenty
a
of breathing room.
Sorry, I read 3 things at once. I think that's a carpet.
And by the way, the surface feels styled and high-end, while still maintaining plenty of breathing room. And by the way, this entire framework of manipulating how the brain processes weight and numbers is known as the 3-5-7 rule. It's not a strict law that you have to follow with a calculator, but once you understand it,
No,
you're gonna
it's
start
not.
seeing it everywhere.
No.
But even if you've paid
No,
attention
no.
to your home for years, and on paper your room
No, no.
sounds perfect, you might still look around and realize it feels a bit like a page out of a furniture catalog. It's fine, but it's completely devoid of any personality. And this is what I call the sanitization trap. It happens when you become so obsessed with following the rules, or staying within the safe boundaries of a specific aesthetic like mid-century modern or Scandi minimalism, that you accidentally edit out every trace of your own pulse. You suppress your actual preferences in favor of what you think a nice room is supposed to look like. Now, this process of aesthetic scrubbing happens pretty slowly. You choose the base.
Okay, I just realized 15 minutes into the video that I told you guys at the beginning that I hand selected this off of my my front page of YouTube for us to watch. Caught. Exposed. Yo, Fire OG with the Twitch Prime sub. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for the Prime sub. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. How can this dude sit in front of a camera and talk about this shit? Look. Do you need a second look at him? He seems exactly like the type who would stand in front of a camera and talk about this shit.
Beige rug because it's safe, then the matching side tables because they're easy, and the trendy art piece because it's recognizable. But over time, the room loses all of its soul. It's aesthetically acceptable, but it's emotionally hollow. But the big problem here is that when every element in a room is perfectly coordinated, the brain stops seeing the space as a home and starts thinking of it as a showroom. And because there's no visual conflict, the eye just glides over everything without stopping because it isn't finding anything to latch onto. So to break this, you have to introduce something unusual, some intentional imperfection.
Like a Hulk statue. I agree. There should be a 7.5-foot Hulk statue in the center of the living room to really contrast everything in the room. Break up the monotony.
You need to let something real exist in the space without trying to fix it or make it match. And this realness is often just the texture of life. The dent in a wooden table that reminds you of a dinner party, or a chair that's slightly too large for its corner, but is still the best place to read. Because when we try to fix these things by replacing them with something more proportional or more pristine, we inadvertently kill the character of the room. Just think about the coolest homes you've ever been in.
You just spent 16 minutes telling us how we should make our house look like it was built at Universal Studios to be burnt to the ground in a new movie. And now all of a sudden my fucking house can have personality again? Oh my
Usually
god.
there's one piece that doesn't quite
Bro just
fit
likes
the
to hear his
rules.
own voice.
Maybe it's a
Same.
rugged, beaten up leather chair in a room full of sleep.
I don't like hearing his voice. I like hearing my voice. I was just a little dig at myself because I talk a lot.
Sleek velvet, or maybe it's a weird, oversized piece of folk art that
Every
isn't
time he
quite
speaks,
the
I just
right
hear the
color.
spit in
These
his
aren't
mouth.
mistakes. These are personal anchors. Because when every item in a room is new and perfectly on trend, the room has no history, no friction. But you need that friction to create depth. And in this
Oh my god, now I hear it. I didn't notice it this entire time. And then as soon as I unpaused it, I could hear him go, oh, fuck.
case, the friction comes from the clashing of different eras and stories. It's the spatial equivalent of a compelling plot twist, because by mixing a modern sofa with a 19th century chest or a contemporary lamp with a vintage desk, you create a timeline within your four walls, and that friction forces the brain to reconcile different periods of time, which adds a sense of permanence and weight to the room that a showroom fresh setup just can't replicate. But there's more to it than that, because a perfectly decorated room lacks authenticity. It's the difference between a mass-produced vase cast in a mold and a piece of handmade pottery. The handmade piece has a story to it, and your brain picks up on that subconsciously. It recognizes the irregularities as evidence of human presence. And that's why when a room is full of objects that are too
I hate how moist his voice is. I hate how I'm just now realizing that he doesn't have his audio lined up with his mouth. His lips are like ahead or behind of what he's saying.
smooth, too plastic, or too uniform, it feels disconnected from the human experience. So to make a space feel grounded, you need materials that have some organic grit, objects that show the hand of the craftsperson and the passage of time. So to fix a generic room, apply the 80-20 rule of curation. 80%
If he is AI, I will crash out. I don't think he's AI, guys. I don't think he's AI. I think he just doesn't have his audio lined up.
No one wants their home to look cheap with cheap looking finishes. They're not just low quality, they're trying too hard. Because
No, I think it's a vital flaw in his editing process that he hasn't recognized because he's getting views. He dyed his hair though, I know that much.
of your room can be the rules, so that's the clean lines, the right lighting, and the cohesive color palette, because this is the foundation that keeps the room from feeling chaotic. But the remaining 20% should be uncorrected. This is where you stop asking, does this match? And you start asking, does this mean something to me? So the 80% is the professional structure, but the 20% is the personality. And it's in that 20% where you include the weird stuff. The odd lamp you found at that flea market, or those messy books you just can't seem to get rid of. So it's the 80% that makes the room work, but the 20% that makes you want to stay. In other words, stop chasing perfection and start chasing resonance.
Who genuinely
Because the home
watches
should-
this guy? He has thousands of views. Bro, I'm not gonna lie. I think without being too offensive, it's people who are like not really in like the meta of humanity. Like you know you like you know how like with social media and everything, it's like there's like this whole new meta to being like human, and it's like if you're watching this shit, you're like living in an old meta, you know? Like it's like it serves its purpose, it has its value, but I think if it's like if you're like a daily watcher of this guy, then you're in a whole different meta of life, bro. Like you have different problems. You maybe your parents made you go to college and you're an accountant and you have, you know, student loans to pay off, but you have a nice Lexus and a little 2-bedroom house and you're getting married at 26, you know. I don't know, bro. I don't know.
look like a person actually lives there, not like it's been staged by a marketing team. So I'd say if there's one takeaway from all this, it's that your brain is constantly looking for proof of life in your surroundings. It looks for the shadow that says an object has depth, just as it looks for the imperfections that says a human being lives here.
Literally
So
an
lean too
interior
hard into
designer.
the logical-
Yeah. Hey, if all 104,000 likes are interior designers, then maybe our world is gonna look really liminal soon.
Side of interior design, matching all the materials perfectly or buying a full set from a catalog, we're essentially starving our brains of the visual data they need to feel comfortable. But by introducing a bit of visual friction and breaking up those flat horizontal and vertical planes, you aren't just making your room look better, you're making it feel more stable and intentional. And more importantly, you're giving the eye a journey to go on, which is the hallmark of a high-end space. But now that you understand how these high-end spaces are designed, you're ready to move beyond the quick fixes. And the next step is learning a system to tie it all together. So watch this video next where I'll teach you one of the design frameworks I've developed for turning boring, uninspiring rooms into spaces you love to spend time in.
Yeah, buddy, it seems like you basically make the same video 1,000 different ways, okay? I'm not gonna lie, okay? Dude, the third top comment is, step 1, get a living room with enough space to move my couch 6 inches away from the wall. Thank you, bro. That's exactly where I was with it. I'm like, whoa. What do you mean rehang my curtains? Remount my curtains lower from the ceiling? Who do you think I am, dude? Who do you think? You think I own my house? This is a truly architect here. This is a truly necessary video in these times where every project you see feels staged for an IG post. What? Did we just watch a different video? All of those examples looked staged for an IG post. Everything's too shiny, too reflective, too sharp, and too perfect. Soulless spaces made purely for trends. I would have rather seen 15 different Frutiger Arrow inspired rooms than what I just watched. I'm not gonna lie. You guys know Frutiger Arrow? Now that's a trend that should be made reality. We should have Frutiger Arrow houses and cars and highways. Everything should be all with nature, you know? They don't want that though. They want boxes. They want boxes that you can stuff shit inside of that you buy from Harbor Freight. Or what's it called? Cracker Barrel. Or wait, Crate and Barrel. Yeah, Crate and Barrel. And IKEA. You know? You know what I'm talking about. To me, these are actually the kinds of spaces that feel sterile and staged. To me, it never feels that cozy or lived in. Everything is mostly for aesthetic and show. It's not purposefully being used, like the decorative stuff on the shelf, etc. Yeah, that's my point, bro. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, the people who are going to take the most from this video are going to go and like do all this stuff, and it's gonna be like for their own selfish reasons. You know what I mean? Nothing against them, but like, he kept talking about it like it's like, you know, to bring people in and make the viewer, you know, consume your art that is the room. And it's like, who are you making this video for? Like, the people who are wealthy enough to have interior designers and people over to look at all their expensive shit, they don't need your YouTube video. It's already done. It's paid for. A professional's taking care of it. You know what I mean? This is a video for the person in that middle ground that can, like, they're paying off their mortgage. They barely scraped by. They were able to make the down payment, get their house. They're paying off the mortgage. They're making small improvements here and there. They want to make it feel like it's their home and like their money is actually worth, you know, their house is worth it, you know? All this heartache. And then they end up drilling into a fucking electrical line because you told them to remount their their what the remount their blinds an inch from the ceiling. What even was it? I don't even want to know, bro. I don't even want to remember. I'm gonna forget everything I just consumed. Guys, symmetry, lines everywhere, ambient lights, okay, and walk around naked, okay. That's the real secret trick that he didn't share. Is just walk around the house naked. That's gonna make everything feel better. You could live in a stone hut with just a bench, and you'd feel cool because you're naked. All right. If you're over on YouTube watching this video, then make sure you come over to the Twitch and freaking subscribe and hang out with us, because literally, you know, it'd be nice to have you, dude. You're probably eating a sandwich right now, watching this with your grandma. And your grandma's getting tired of hanging out with you. Come hang out with us. All right.